Congressman Dean Phillips, he never met his father. Artie Pfefer was killed in Vietnam when the congressman was only 6 months old. But a discovery in boxes of family heirlooms has let the congressman hear his father's voice. A recording of a call to his mother when he was just a baby. Listen to this.
I thought I would get on the horn here and say a few choice comments. We gotta get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, we gotta get out of this place. Girl, make a better life for me and you. Yeah, that's what they sang tonight, honey. And boy, those words fit the situation to the T. I really love you so much. And our little baby Dean, oh, I'm just getting a feeling for him. Those pictures and you know, his voice and everything. I really like to give him a great big fat kiss.
And joining me now is Congressman Dean Phillips of Minnesota. Congressman, it's so moving to hear that recording of your father, a man you never met, and you only heard it a couple years ago for the first time. What was it like to hear that?
Amazing, John. One of the great blessings of my life. My mom held on to these old reel-to-reel tapes that she had collected that they exchanged when he was in Vietnam. To hear his voice so many years later is both a miracle and an amazing blessing and a reminder of there are 20,000 Gold Star children from Vietnam, 5,000 from the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. To know a parent through their voice or their photos or the stories is a great blessing that very few get to have. So I feel quite blessed, and I'm just glad I didn't inherit my dad's singing voice.
Well, you inherited his looks. We can put the picture up on the screen here again so people can see it. I mean, you know, you look exactly like him, which is remarkable. But to hear him say, again, I can't imagine what it was like to grow up, knowing that your father had died in Vietnam before you ever had a chance to meet him. But to hear him say he wanted to give you a big fat kiss, even decades later, I mean, it would have just melted my heart.
And it melts mine. You know, it's like I said, it's a great blessing. And you know, John, he was killed just days after the moon landing in 1969. And I think about the fact that he got to know the America at its very best at a time fighting a war that reflected some of our very worst. That's a blessing. And you know, and his service and sacrifice in no small part illuminate my path in Congress. I think about him every day, all those who served, and I keep those recordings, the one you just played, plus many more on my phone to remind me every day of my responsibilities.
So you've had these recordings. This one you're releasing just for the first time now. Why? And you did for Veterans Day, which was yesterday, we should note. Why did you want the public to hear this? Why is this meaningful, not just for you, but for the work that you're doing?
You know, John, as I reflected earlier, there are thousands of Gold Star families. You might not know their names, you might not know their faces, but thousands of grieving families from even the Afghanistan and Iraq conflicts, children who have lost their parents. And I think sharing that is a reminder of the cost of war. We all too often forget the sacrifices being made by our veterans, their families, for generations. And on Veterans Day in particular, of course, I think about my father and so many others. And I think it's also important that we reflect on the United States. Unfortunately, my father knew an America that was quite divided at that time. Serving in Vietnam, he was aware of the protests back home. I'm sure there was a conflict for many who served in Vietnam. You know, 50 years later, we find ourselves once again in very divisive times. And I think a reminder for all of us to reflect on the past, consider the future, and recognize that if we don't stick together, we've got a lot to lose, including a lot more lives. And I want to make my service in Congress about reconciliation and bridge building and coming back together. I think that's what my dad would have wanted. I think all who have served want the same thing.
And you've worked tirelessly on mental health issues for veterans, correct?
Yeah, John, we're losing thousands of veterans a year to suicide. In my estimation, preventable if we afford the resources. You know, we are a country that always finds the resources to send young men and women off to war. And somehow we can't find the resources to take care of them all when they come back. I think it's a responsibility of me, everybody in Congress, to ensure that we provide those services. And if they exist, to ensure that there are connections to those, because too many veterans simply don't know what they've earned, and we have that responsibility to support them. And I encourage everybody watching to reach out an arm and to give a hug to a veteran, because many are struggling.
Or a big fat kiss, which is what your father
Or a big fat
wanted
kiss.
to send you. Congressman Dean Phillips, thank you for sharing that recording with us. Your father would be so proud of what you've become.
Thank you, John. Keep the faith.
You too.
I think the big fat kiss, that is what the sacrifice is, Berman. You know, for his family, it's giving up that forever. And for other families, it's giving it up for a long period of time when normally you don't have to.
I'm so glad he got to hear that.
Yes.
CNN's coverage continues right now.